where to start the fan.
This fan?
Yeah, like how?
Okay. Yeah.
Like
So
why like March 24th?
yeah. So you can see I actually have done it not correctly here. They're supposed to start at the exact same point. Okay. But I'm not trying to be starting at the exact same point, because if I did, it would be somewhere out here in the middle of nowhere. You do want to make sure they always start at the exact same point. I'm just trying to get a rough idea for this shape I'm noticing. So whatever catches my eye first. So what I can do is actually correct this, right? Now that I've seen this play out, we can adjust it still. So I'm going to actually move this to the very top candle, and you're just picking whatever catches your eye the most. Like, is there anything here that would catch your eye? Not really. It's kind of like whatever, like bouncing back and forth. It can't make up its mind. Something cool would be the most obvious point. Okay, so you're not looking at this one, because what happened? It happened again, an even lower point. So there's less significance now for that first one if there's two of them fighting for attention. Think of it as twins, right? Which one would you date? So here we actually have triplets fighting over your attention. So which one would you pick, right? It's kind of like whatever catches your eye first. So if I needed to draw a fan, first thing I do is it's very easy, because you just pick on whatever gets your attention first. In this particular case, what would normally get my attention first is the absolute largest peak or trough. Okay, so where do you see that on this entire chart? Would it be this one, or this one? Is it A, B, or C? What do you think? Some people may believe it's this one because it's the first one, but it's not necessarily true. It is actually this one. It is the most obvious because it stands out the most on its own. Okay, so we're going to start the fan from here. So all I'm going to do now is, let me actually clear that out of the way. I'm going to now get my trend lines and start from the exact same point. And let's just look for the next most common tips. Either they can be tops or bottoms. So I'm going to go for this peak over here. And I'm going to make another one, same starting point, exact same starting point, another one here. So I've got my two tips, 1 and 2. Now that I've drawn two lines, I'm now got an easy job. All I got to do is maintain the distance from here to here symmetrically. So I'm no longer looking for tips. I'm now looking for this gap between the two lines to stay the same. So we're going to start from the same point. Even if it makes no sense, I'm going to just keep the distances the same. Okay, so it looks identical. And you just keep drawing it out in whichever direction you think. This direction doesn't make sense because we're getting further away from the current price, but just showing you how I draw them. Okay, and it doesn't matter how many, you're just going to keep going, and then eventually you're going to find that it means something again. Okay, so notice it matched up nicely with this one here, but I didn't draw that because that's where the peak was. I drew it because I wanted to maintain this same as much as possible. I'll probably zoom in and do this more correctly later on. If I saw that the price is hovering around here and how far down it could go, but where that ship has sailed, we're actually further up. So this fan is kind of useless for us at this moment, unless Dash crashes completely, right? And it has a very big tumble, it'll start being meaningful once again. But until then, that's a useless fan, right? So, but you start by looking for them from the most obvious peak, and then look at drawing the next two most obvious peaks, and then just keep the same distance between them. Okay, so why did I choose this bottom here, do you think? Because it was the most obvious bottom I could find, right? I could have started here. It probably would work too. Right? Let me try quickly with the blue lines. Let's go. Make it blue. Okay. And the next most obvious bottom is this one, which is where I actually started from. And then what I want to do also, rather than going to the next area, which I don't know if it's this peak or which one, what we can do is we can go from, we started our here, we got the most obvious bottom peak. Now let's go straight to the most obvious top peak. This is the other way you can draw. So now we're going to connect those. And then all we do is find the exact 50% line. So let's put that in. Actually, let me get rid of these ones quickly, because they're in the way. They're not helping. Okay. So what I've done is I found the most obvious bottom. If I didn't pick this one, let's say I picked this one. Now we're drawing the blue lines. When I start there, I need to find the absolute next bottom. It's not this one. It's this one. It's lower. So I got my first line. Now I'm going to pick the top line, which is up here. So let's connect those. We're going to go from the same point to that. And we just continue now with going 50, 50, 50. So we're going to go from the exact same starting point, go using your eye, go exactly 50% of the way. And notice how that actually did give some significance for a significant time period that the chart spent there in the future. And this is all based on here in February starting point. Okay. Now what I can do is I can go 50% of the 50% line, go exactly halfway again, and go exactly halfway again. I'm not even looking at the peaks and bottoms anymore. I'm just trying to make these as symmetrical as possible so that this is the same as this, and same as this, and same as this. And look what happened. Look how I just nailed it on the head right there with this predicted that where this bottom would occur for this coin. So now I've shown you how I draw the fans. I've got two fans that are overlapping and they're in a meaningful direction because we're in between both of the fans. Sometimes you've seen me do this where I'll make the line actually a dotted line, more like a dashed line. And for the other one here, it's actually too low. I need to make it halfway because we just adjusted it. So I'm going to have to adjust this. Let's adjust the yellow line to be exactly halfway between the top and bottom first. And then these red lines and green lines that we're going to make dashed. So you got kind of how I did the support and resistance. I got to adjust this green one to be halfway. Okay, so you can see all I've done is pick the top absolute peak and the bottom absolute peak and bottom. And then I just put the yellow line smack in the center. And you can see that has actually worked. Okay, so you can always adjust things afterwards. And then this dotted line works nicely here, quite significantly. You could have done this earlier just by getting the first two, and then you can put the next two just for fun. And then you can see that predicted how far it would drop. So I like to use fans quite a bit. I don't draw them often because it's confusing. But right now, if we're going to overlap the two, the blue one and the rainbow colored one, or the traffic light colored one, where are we at? Are we closer to the middle, the bottom, or the top half? Well, for the colored one, actually, let me do it correctly. For the colored fan, from here to here, yellow is in the middle, so we're bullish slightly. For the blue fan, we can see this is the middle here. Again, slightly bullish. And actually, if that happens, I do see this touching this blue line, maybe going back to the green dotted line. Guess what? That could count as a head and shoulders. Let's see here. If this goes back up to here, that could already count as one. So if it goes any lower and higher. So there's a chance that this could bounce, and then that could be the second head and shoulders. So this does have potential to arrive back up to here at 420 for Dash. But it also gives you a nice indication of if you want to be really conservative, wait till it's down here and only buy it at 250 or 260, right? So you're absolutely at the very bottom green line of support for the rainbow colored one, and pretty low for the blue one, both indicating a much higher move. So that's how you can use your fans, and that's how you draw them. Again, just catch the first bottom that catches your eye. If you can't make up your mind, draw both. And in this case, we didn't need to draw this one downward because we know that the price is way further away than all of those lines. So it's not helping. These two are helping. BAT, we could do the same thing here. But this would be a tougher one because you don't know if you want to pick on this peak or this peak. So you'd probably draw like a bunch of fans, right? You can have two. And I'm telling you that that's going to be a meaningful fan, whichever one you choose. Okay, so we could use that. And it's going to give you nice targets for both the upside and downside. And that's in addition to using the horizontal tool, right, that you want to use. That will also help. That's interesting. We got a nice channel there. Okay, so this is kind of neutral though. Also, a lot of cryptos are neutral right now. This one may be looking like a drop. We could see this one come down. I'm seeing some indications of that here, even though it's broken out from there. Again, just showing you an example of doing a fan. So I found where I drew those lines were based off of this peak and this peak. And if I want to, I can add a third one now to give myself a target. So let's do that. Same starting point, because this is one point that's very clear. And now I'm going to use the same, making sure this is too thin, that's too wide. So let's try to make it as symmetrical as we can. Approximately there. So this trade idea all of a sudden doesn't look so great. If anything, I would do it up here. Okay, wait for the price to come up because it's near the middle, up to here, sell it, put my stop loss above that fan, and see the price come back down. So we're going to wait for that one. Even though this looks bearish a little bit here. It looks like it's trajecting lower, but this is a risky trade. Probably won't do that yet. A lot of these are risky. So what I'm going to, be patient. Wait for this to come down. Wait for this to come down. Maybe enter here. If I can get a low position here, that might be a trade. But it looks like my favorite one was actually Ethereum to go down. Just because we've got, all of these signals. Oops. Like remember all these channels here. I haven't even drawn them all in, but you can see. Let's go to 1 hour. Right, this could be quite the drop coming here. Like I could clone these and draw more channels. Either way, going back down to the middle of this blue channel, it's quite the drop. We're talking 2,500. And that's just halfway. There's a chance it could go all the way down to 2,300. So, in this particular case, the only thing that's going to help Ethereum at this point is currently at this moment go bullish at this current moment to stay inside of this channel. But it's not going to be easy because we got 1, 2, and maybe a third peak happening here. And fighting this blue line isn't going to be easy. So good luck because Ethereum needs it. If you're bullish right now, that's an unnecessary risk. You have to fight this brick wall, which is not smart. Think of it as, there's 1,000 horses here pushing the wall down. And you have only like 1 or 2 horses pushing it up. That's the chances. that it goes above this blue brick wall. Now, if Ethereum does manage somehow to sneak through this wall, there's a crack in the wall still exists. This line does not disappear. If Ethereum can find itself on the correct side of this wall, all of these horses become its friend now. They join it. And now they can all move much higher, much quickly together. So it still becomes a strong support. So if we can head up, then it can now still act like a wall and keep going up. And now there's 1,000 horses helping it to stay higher. I guess the better way to say it is now that the 1,000 horses will be on the other side pushing it up. They switch roles. So it'll be easy for it to go down and back higher. But we need to have Ethereum up here. So the level there, to be exact, we're looking at about all-time high. So we need an all-time high again. And it's not easy to get an all-time high. Not when you've got the crypto market, Ethereum BTC so high. It's actually, is that an all-time high? I believe it is. We have Ethereum at an not quite all-time high. Ethereum hasn't been this high compared to Bitcoin since 2018. Okay, almost 3 years ago, Ethereum was better than this level it is compared to Bitcoin. So it's making a comeback. I guess you could call this a cup and handle, right? And I believe that will happen. I believe Bitcoin can lose a lot more ground to Ethereum in the future. Will it happen right now, though? That's anybody's guess. I would like to say that I would be comfortable making a sell position here if this was tradable. Right? You can do your resistance here. Although it's crossed above that, I don't think it's going to stay there. Let's use this all-time low here. Let's see if we can make a fan shape. Let's use the next peak. That explains it. That's why it's there. And let's put a little bit to the downside, a target for us. See how far down this can go. I'm no longer looking at any peaks. I'm just making this as symmetrical as I can to see. And it actually played out with the peaks nicely. Right? So yeah, so you can see that this can come down easily. And you can do 3. I'm going to do 4 just for keeping things symmetrical sake. I'm going to do 4. The reason I like to do 4, and you can see just how symmetrical this is here. I mean, bouncing off of these peaks here nicely. That's so accurate. So what I'm going to do is love that. And now I'm going to change these colors to be the correct ones, how we normally do the traffic light system. This one would be the yellow light or orange. And then this one would be green with the hyphen. So definitely you see it's very powerful to learn how to do. This is just one style of indicator, but I'm glad you asked that question because I don't often get asked that question because I don't often try to draw more intermediate level patterns. And I can also see here that there's a lot more stuff out in the middle of the air here that I'm probably missing some. I could probably get away with drawing more of them. Or I could have started how I normally should have, take the absolute bottom, right, as my starting point. So then I've got my absolute peak and absolute bottom, and then I go halfway, and we can see that's actually the halfway line, this green line that I drew. It's exactly half and half. So so let's complete it. Let's go the other half, and you can see what I'm saying. Very, very powerful once you get a grasp of this. I just don't try to overcomplicate charts for when we're working with beginners. But you can see here. So now this is actually the yellow line. I just correct a couple of them, so you can see, and these would be red. And you can also change the thickness to keep it the same. So maybe we can do these as dotted lines, and these ones as the dashed ones. Have some kind of a system that's consistent. I'm going to keep this up here because this is Ethereum. Bitcoin is going to be looked at quite often. So that's why I'm spending a little bit of effort on this one. And now I got a target. You can see what I did there. Okay. So very expensive Ethereum compared to Bitcoin. I know people in, Facebook are posting all over that, oh, Ethereum is cheap compared to Bitcoin. Actually, no, it's not. I just proved it right here. It can go easily down. And that's if Bitcoin, if Bitcoin goes up, Ethereum may not go up. If Bitcoin crashes, Ethereum can crash a lot. If Bitcoin goes sideways, Ethereum can drop. So those are the scenarios. It's expensive. Yes, it can become even more expensive. It's possible. It has happened. I'm not saying that's likely, though. You're chasing a little bit of a gain for a potential big loss. Unnecessary. And that's where I drew the fan from. Why I decided to draw it from there, it's the absolute lowest point. You could have gotten away with doing it here, but I noticed I cheated. I looked at these two peaks where they point towards. So I kind of reverse engineered that one.
Robert, can I ask a question about fans?
Yeah.
Why is it important for it to be symmetrical, the lines?
Okay, it's actually, I'm going to go now. Normally, I don't talk about fans because it's more intermediate level and it can scare off beginners. Now I'm going to go into the advanced. Okay. So this is, don't get overwhelmed, but it doesn't have to be symmetrical. It can actually be Fibonacci fan. Okay. So you got, let me see here. You've got your pitchforks. They actually have Fibonacci fans also. Let me see. Which one do I want to use to make it simpler? Not doing the Fibonacci wedge. Let's try this one here quickly, right? So you got sort of like this based on Fibonacci levels. I'm not doing it overlapping because it would be confusing. Okay, so what you got here, let's put it upwards at least. So you pick your point, and let's try to keep this, all you do is you try to line up the absolute top and the absolute bottom. So let's start with the top here. I'm gonna use this peak over here, the big one. Okay, the top line has to touch there. Now I want the bottom line to touch the bottom line. You can see it's too high. So I'm just gonna drag down. As close as I can. So those are two, you can't go sideways. So let's ignore the sideways one. Let's actually put it where the correct one is. Let's put it here, the starting point that we used earlier, and let's overlap them now. And what you're trying to look for is the middle line. Okay, so if I put it over my yellow here, you're trying to look for where were the major peaks. If you find a series of peaks that line up nicely with one straight line, that's where you want to put it. And it just so happens to be this yellow line that I used. Okay, so what I'm saying is if there was a peak here, a peak here, a peak here, and you see a nice straight line, that's chances are that's where you want to put the middle of this fan. Okay, so in this case, I'm just overlapping it with the yellow. So if I go now and I deleted all my red, yellow, and green lines, you see there's thinner lines here going on. You got your Fibonacci levels that are in the middle of nowhere. Okay, these ones overlap, but then these do not. You got your Fibonacci, you got the one I drew. These overlap. These are sort of off. Okay, so it's nice to see the Fibonacci fan too. It's actually quite powerful. Sometimes I'll use the Fibonacci fan, not the symmetrical ones, but it's a lot more confusing. You see the 70, you got 61.8, 50%, 38%. Let's pick another chart quickly and just do a quick one. So if I go to here, right? So where would we use the starting point? I'm just going to use this bottom and this peak. So I'm going to do the same thing. Click on that point. And let's pick the absolute top. And let's just use the body for not the wick for this example. Okay, so there you go. So I can expect the middle line very easily to be touched. But it's not exact because the way I drew them symmetrically, you have the middle line. What you don't get are these other ones, 38.2%. You don't get the 0.25%. You do get the 0.51. Okay, the way that I draw them. So that's something that is very powerful to use in conjunction with horizontal lines. But as you can see, it's quite messy if you have a lot more indicators on the chart too, like our moving average, Bollinger Band. Now it's kind of hard to see it, right? So what you'll do is you'll have to turn it off temporarily, which you can do here. You can turn off your drawing tools. You can just mute it with the eyeball. That's why next masterclass, I want to go over how to use these different tools. So now you're not overwhelmed. You can actually see stuff. Okay, so yeah, great question. But you can see those are the things. So we're going to wrap up here because we have to be mindful of